Eleanor sat at her kitchen table in Asheville, North Carolina, staring at the little glucose meter her daughter had mailed her last Christmas. The number on the screen was higher than it should have been, and she knew exactly why. The night before, she had finished off a slice of pecan pie, the kind her mother used to bake every Sunday after church. Eleanor was 72 years old, and she had lived long enough to know that giving up dessert entirely was not going to happen. Not in this lifetime. Not in a house where the cookie jar had sat on the counter since 1968. So Eleanor did what women of her generation always did when something stopped working. She sat down with a notepad, called her sister in Charleston, and started writing down every dessert they could think of that did not involve turning on the oven and did not send her blood sugar climbing toward the ceiling. What they came up with surprised both of them. There were more options than either woman expected. Old recipes their grandmothers had made before refined sugar took over every kitchen in America. New combinations using ingredients doctors now recommend for people managing diabetes, and a handful of tricks that would fool anyone into thinking they were eating something sinful. These are the 10 no-cook desserts Eleanor added to her recipe box that fall, the ones she still makes 3 or 4 times a week, and the ones her doctor in Asheville quietly approves of every time she shows up for her checkup. Let us begin. Number 1. Chia seed pudding with fresh berries. Eleanor's sister introduced her to chia seed pudding over the telephone one afternoon, and Eleanor laughed for a full minute before she agreed to try it. The idea that a spoonful of tiny black seeds could turn into a thick, creamy pudding overnight sounded like something from a health food store run by people half her age. But Eleanor tried it anyway, and by morning she understood what all the fuss was about. The recipe could not be simpler. 3 tablespoons of chia seeds stirred into 1 cup of unsweetened almond milk or whole milk, a splash of vanilla extract, and a small drizzle of pure maple syrup or a pinch of monk fruit sweetener. Stir it well, cover the jar, and place it in the refrigerator before you go to bed. In the morning, the seeds have swelled into a thick tapioca-like pudding. Top it with a handful of fresh blueberries, raspberries, or sliced strawberries, and you have a dessert that tastes like something a spa would charge $12 for. What makes chia pudding special for older adults watching their blood sugar is the soluble fiber. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition has shown that soluble fiber slows down the absorption of sugar in the small intestine, which flattens the spike that usually follows a sweet treat. The berries add natural sweetness without the punch of table sugar, and the protein in the milk keeps you feeling full for hours. But chia pudding is only the beginning of Eleanor's list, and the next one might be the most familiar dessert on this entire page. Number 2. Greek yogurt parfait with walnuts and cinnamon. Every woman Eleanor knew in the 1970s had a tall parfait glass somewhere in the back of the cupboard, usually stacked inside a gravy boat nobody used anymore. Eleanor dug hers out one Tuesday afternoon, washed off 50 years of dust, and started making parfaits again. Only this time, instead of sweetened fruit cocktail and whipped topping, she layered full-fat plain Greek yogurt with crushed walnuts, a sprinkle of cinnamon, and a scattering of blackberries. The result was something closer to cheesecake than yogurt. Thick, tangy, rich enough to feel like a real dessert, and sweet enough that Eleanor never missed the sugar that used to sit at the bottom of the old recipe. The reason this one works for blood sugar comes down to 3 ingredients working together. Full-fat Greek yogurt delivers around 18 grams of protein per cup, which is more than 2 eggs. Walnuts bring healthy omega-3 fats and a satisfying crunch. And cinnamon, according to reviews published by the Mayo Clinic, has been studied for its modest ability to improve fasting glucose levels in people with type 2 diabetes. Eleanor eats this one for breakfast sometimes too, which tells you something about how little the line between dessert and breakfast really matters once you cross 70. Now, the next recipe on her list is the one most people do not believe until they taste it. Number 3. Avocado chocolate mousse. Eleanor's grandson was the one who showed her this trick, and she nearly threw him out of the kitchen. Avocado in a dessert. The very idea. But she tried a bite, and her opinion changed in about 4 seconds. What came out of that food processor tasted exactly like the chocolate mousse her mother used to make for dinner parties in the 1950s, the kind served in little stemmed glasses with a shaving of orange peel on top. The recipe calls for 2 ripe avocados, 1/3 of a cup of unsweetened cocoa powder, 3 tablespoons of pure maple syrup or an equivalent amount of monk fruit, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and a pinch of sea salt. Drop everything into a food processor and blend until it is completely smooth. Spoon it into small glasses, chill for 30 minutes, and top with a few fresh raspberries or a scattering of dark chocolate shavings. What makes this one remarkable for seniors watching their blood sugar is the fat profile. Avocados are loaded with monounsaturated fats, the same kind found in olive oil, which research from Harvard Health has linked to better insulin sensitivity. The fiber from the avocado also helps blunt the glucose response from whatever sweetener you choose. You get the richness of traditional mousse, made with heavy cream and egg yolks, but without the saturated fat and without the blood sugar roller coaster. And if you thought avocado in dessert was surprising, wait until you see what Eleanor does with a frozen banana. Number 4. Frozen banana nice cream with almond butter. This one is a trick Eleanor picked up from a neighbor who used to run a small ice cream parlor outside of Boone. The neighbor was in her 80s, still sharp as a tack, and she had been making this dessert for her grandchildren for 30 years. She called it banana ice cream. Though today everybody seems to call it nice cream, as if that makes it healthier somehow. The method is almost too simple to believe. Peel 2 slightly underripe bananas, slice them into coins, and freeze them on a parchment-lined tray for at least 4 hours. Drop the frozen banana coins into a food processor with 1 tablespoon of almond butter and a splash of vanilla extract. Pulse until the mixture turns into a soft serve ice cream consistency. Eat it immediately. The reason this one is friendlier to blood sugar than store-bought ice cream has to do with ripeness. A slightly green banana, one with just a hint of yellow, but still firm, contains resistant starch, a kind of carbohydrate that passes through the digestive system without being fully absorbed. The almond butter adds protein and fat, which further slows down the sugar release. The texture is creamy, the flavor is sweet, and there is not a drop of added sugar anywhere in the bowl. Eleanor makes this one on Sunday afternoons, usually while watching whatever golf tournament her husband has on the television. Now the next recipe is one that has been sitting in Italian-American kitchens for 100 years. Number 5. Ricotta cream with lemon zest and blueberries. Eleanor's mother-in-law came over from Sicily in 1952, and she brought with her a habit that Eleanor never forgot. Every Sunday after the big meal, Mama Rosa would pull a container of fresh ricotta cheese out of the refrigerator, scoop it into little dishes, grate lemon peel over the top, and drizzle on a tiny bit of honey. That was dessert. No pies, no cakes, no frosting, just ricotta, lemon, and a spoon. Eleanor has brought this tradition back into her own kitchen with one small update for the blood sugar conscious. She starts with 1 cup of whole milk ricotta, stirs in the zest of half a lemon, adds 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and sweetens it with just a teaspoon of honey or a pinch of monk fruit. She tops it with a handful of fresh blueberries and sometimes a few chopped pistachios. The beauty of ricotta as a dessert base is the protein content, around 14 grams per cup, along with a creamy texture that feels indulgent. The blueberries provide antioxidants and fiber. The lemon zest adds a bright note that tricks the tongue into thinking there is far more sweetness than is actually present. And because the total added sugar is so low, the whole dessert barely registers on a glucose monitor. If you have never tried ricotta as a dessert, this is the recipe that will convert you. And the next one on Eleanor's list does the same thing with an ingredient most of us have not touched since childhood. Number 6. Cottage cheese with fresh peaches and slivered almonds. Cottage cheese went out of style somewhere around 1985, and it has been trying to make its way back ever since. Eleanor never stopped eating it. She remembers her mother serving cottage cheese with canned peaches for dessert on hot summer nights in the 1960s, back when air conditioning was a luxury and nobody wanted to turn on the oven between June and September. The updated version uses fresh ingredients instead of canned. 1 cup of small curd full-fat cottage cheese, half a fresh peach sliced thin, a small handful of slivered almonds, and a tiny drizzle of honey or a pinch of cinnamon. Spoon it into a bowl and dessert is done in under 2 minutes. What cottage cheese brings to the table for older adults is an incredible protein to calorie ratio. Around 25 grams of protein in a single cup. That much protein slows digestion dramatically, which means the natural sugars in the peach enter the bloodstream gradually instead of all at once. The slivered almonds add vitamin E and magnesium, both of which the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition has connected to better blood sugar regulation in older adults. It is a throwback recipe, plain and simple. And sometimes the old ways really did get it right. Eleanor sat on her porch one evening last September eating a small bowl of ricotta with blueberries and thought about her mother. Her mother had also lived with diabetes, but her mother had been born in 1912, in a time before doctors really understood what the disease was doing inside the body. Her mother had been told to cut out sugar, and that was about it. No one ever mentioned fiber or protein or the difference between a spike and a steady rise. No one ever told her about avocados or chia seeds or the protective power of cinnamon. Eleanor realized, sitting there on her porch with the cicadas buzzing in the trees, how lucky she was to be managing her blood sugar in 2025 instead of 1965. Her mother had given up dessert entirely in her last 20 years of life. Eleanor was not going to do that. She was going to find ways to keep the rituals, the sweetness, at the end of the meal, the little reward for making it through another day. Because dessert is not just food. It is memory. It is Sunday afternoon. It is grandmothers passing things down to granddaughters. It is the part of the day where we slow down and remind ourselves that being alive is worth celebrating. That is why this list matters. Not because every spoonful of mousse is going to add 10 years to your life, but because small changes, made gently and consistently, let you keep the parts of life that make it worth living. If you are finding this video helpful, take a moment to hit the subscribe button below. Fresh recipes land on this channel every week, all of them designed for folks who want to eat well without giving up the foods that bring them joy. Now let us get back to Eleanor's kitchen, because the last 4 recipes are some of the best on the whole list. Number 7, almond butter stuffed medjool dates. Dates have a reputation for being too sugary for anyone watching their blood sugar, and that reputation is only half deserved. The whole truth is more interesting. Medjool dates are sweet, yes, but they also contain a remarkable amount of fiber, and when paired with a fat and protein source like almond butter, they turn into one of the most satisfying small desserts on earth. Eleanor's method is to slice open 4 medjool dates, remove the pits, and stuff each one with about half a teaspoon of unsweetened almond butter. She sometimes presses a single roasted almond into the almond butter for extra crunch. That is the whole recipe. 4 dates, some almond butter, maybe a few nuts. The key to this one is portion control. 2 stuffed dates is a dessert. 6 stuffed dates is a blood sugar event. Eleanor learned that lesson the hard way, and she now sets 2 on a small plate and puts the rest of the dates back in the cupboard before she sits down. The fiber from the date slows absorption somewhat. The fat from the almond butter slows it even more, and the natural sweetness hits harder than you would expect. Your tongue thinks it just ate a caramel. These are perfect for those evenings when you want something rich, chewy, and just a little bit fancy. And if you want to take this same idea and dress it up for company, the next recipe is exactly what you need. Number 8. No-bake strawberry cheesecake jars. Eleanor's book club started meeting at her house 2 years ago, and she needed a dessert she could serve in individual portions, make ahead of time, and feel good about sharing with her friends who were also watching their blood sugar. What she landed on was a no-bake strawberry cheesecake in little mason jars. the kind with a lid that screws on tight. The crust is made from half a cup of almond flour, 2 tablespoons of melted butter, and a teaspoon of monk fruit sweetener pressed into the bottom of each jar. The filling is 8 ounces of softened cream cheese, half a cup of plain Greek yogurt, 2 tablespoons of monk fruit, or 3 tablespoons of pure maple syrup, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla, beaten until smooth. Spoon the filling over the crust, top with fresh sliced strawberries, screw on the lids, and refrigerate for at least 2 hours. What this recipe does brilliantly is replace the graham cracker crust with almond flour, which cuts the carbohydrates dramatically. It replaces the usual sweetened cream cheese. Filling with a blend of cream cheese and Greek yogurt, which adds protein and subtracts sugar. And by using fresh strawberries instead of a sugary compote, it keeps the total glycemic impact low enough that Eleanor's doctor has no complaints. Her book club loves them, and they have no idea they are eating a diabetic-friendly dessert. That is the real victory. Now, the 9th recipe is for the coconut lovers in the audience. Number 9. Coconut Almond Macaroon Bites. Traditional coconut macaroons require an oven, sweetened condensed milk, and enough sugar to knock out a horse. Eleanor's no-cook version keeps the coconut, keeps the chewy texture, keeps the sweet vanilla note, and throws the rest of that out the window. The recipe calls for 1½ cups of unsweetened shredded coconut, half a cup of almond flour, 3 tablespoons of melted coconut oil, 2 tablespoons of monk fruit sweetener or pure maple syrup, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and a pinch of sea salt. Mix everything together in a bowl with a wooden spoon, then roll the mixture into small balls about the size of a walnut. Place them on a parchment-lined plate and chill in the refrigerator for 30 minutes until they firm up. The result is a chewy, coconut-forward bite that tastes like the inside of an Almond Joy candy bar. The coconut provides medium-chain triglycerides, a kind of fat that some studies suggest may support metabolic health in older adults. The almond flour adds protein and keeps the carbohydrate count low. And because each bite is small, portion control happens naturally. Eleanor keeps a jar of these in her refrigerator at all times, and when her grandchildren visit, she has to hide them. Those children cannot tell the difference between Grandma's healthy version and the candy bar at the gas station. One last recipe to go, and Eleanor saved her personal favorite for the end. Number 10. Dark chocolate nut and seed bark. If you grew up in the 1950s or 1960s, you probably remember chocolate bark as a Christmas treat your aunt made once a year, loaded with sugar and peppermint. Eleanor has reworked the concept into a year-round, blood sugar-friendly dessert that she now considers her daily vitamin. The recipe uses 6 ounces of dark chocolate, 70% cocoa or higher, gently melted in a microwave-safe bowl in 30-second bursts. Once the chocolate is smooth, stir in a 1/4 cup of chopped almonds, 2 tablespoons of pumpkin seeds, 2 tablespoons of sunflower seeds, and a pinch of sea salt. Spread the mixture thin across a parchment-lined tray. Sprinkle a few dried cranberries on top if you like a little tartness, and chill until firm. Break it into irregular pieces. The beauty of this dessert is in the cocoa content. Dark chocolate at 70% or higher is loaded with flavanols, compounds that both the Arthritis Foundation and Harvard Health have connected to improved circulation and better insulin sensitivity. The nuts and seeds bring healthy fats, protein, and fiber, which together flatten out any blood sugar response from the small amount of natural sugar in the chocolate. 1 or 2 squares is a perfect after-dinner treat. Eleanor eats 2 pieces every night after supper, sitting on her porch, watching the sun go down over the Blue Ridge Mountains. She says it is the happiest part of her day. So there you have Eleanor's full list: chia seed pudding, Greek yogurt parfait, avocado chocolate mousse, banana nice cream, ricotta with blueberries, cottage cheese with peaches, stuffed dates, strawberry cheesecake jars, coconut macaroon bites, and dark chocolate bark. 10 no-cook desserts that let you end the day with something sweet without sending your blood sugar on a wild ride. Of course, everybody is different. What works for Eleanor may land differently for you, and that is why it is always wise to check with your own doctor or a registered dietitian before making significant changes to your diet, especially if you are managing diabetes, taking medication, or living with other health conditions. This video is meant as a starting point, not a substitute for medical advice. If you enjoyed this list, there is one more recipe collection you do not want to miss. The video showing on your screen right now walks through the 15 forgotten breakfast recipes your grandmother made that doctors are quietly recommending again. Click it now, and I will see you there. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and as always, save room for dessert.